Hello, and welcome to a podcast from the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. Thank you so much for joining us here on this Thursday evening. And I'm excited to be again here with my co host, Caroline Godin. Caroline, how are you doing?
I'm great, Ann. How are you?
Good, good. Uh, I always do this at the beginning because you never know what new people might be with us on the podcast, but tell us about you and what you do.
So, I am a Catholic writer and a catechist, and then I'm also the publicist for First Responder Coaching, which is a life coaching organization that caters specifically to first responders and military personnel and their families, because we are comprised of first responders and military personnel and families. So, we understand the business and are well equipped to be life coaches to that demographic.
That's right. And I know that you just had a conference
We
recently. Now
did.
we're taping this right now in November of 2024. It's going to air, of course, after this date. But would you tell us a little bit about that? Because, you might be having another one in the future too.
Yeah, no, we definitely plan to do another one in the future and then maybe possible future seminars. So we had our first responder coaching. Well, it was a coaching conference. So it wasn't specific to first responders because we also have a subsidiary called Two Roads Coaching, because as we built this company in the last few years, there's been an increasing demand for hey, it's great what you're doing for first responders. You're trying to lower the suicide rate and the recovery from PTSD and all of those things. But what about teachers? What about medical personnel? What about all these other blue collar industries, or even white collar industries that also could really benefit from coaching? So Two Roads Coaching caters to that. So this conference was called Coaching Your Growth, and it was all about um, coaching in general and how life coaching is different from therapy. Doesn't replace therapy if that's what you need, but it is in addition to therapy because it helps people move forward and come up with a new perspective and new ideas from their own end, which then makes them more accountable and makes them more vested in the decisions to take the steps to move on to something better in their lives, or do better in their lives, whatever it is their goals are.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Is there a website, Caroline?
Yes, you can go to firstrespondercoaching.org. That's 1ST, respondercoaching.org, and also tworoadscoaching.org, which is spelled out TWO.
Thank you so much. I think it's important for you, our audience, to kind of get to know each of us. You already know that I'm the executive director for the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith, where we make free pastoral outreach to individuals and families in crisis. So that's why we do this podcast. This is our 12-part series. It's 12 ways to heal at either during or after a crisis. And during this episode, we're going to talk about why it is so important to really get advice from like-minded people of faith when you're going through something. Not all of us are from families of origin that are people that were really rooted in the truths of the faith. And it's difficult, when you're going through some kind of relationship issue or something else, where you go and ask, say, your mom or your sister or your neighbor or somebody that you know. And, they're not going to always be giving you that advice that's really rooted in what we believe as Catholics and as Christians. So, Caroline, well, let's start with you. I mean, what has been your experience in this whole idea of what I just discussed in your own life? Because I know for me, when I've gone through stuff, and not everyone that I'm associated with in my family of origin or elsewhere has the same values that I have. So, what do you think? Why is it important to really seek out those correct, the people who are really understand the truths of the faith?
Yeah, well, if you're looking to grow, have a really good lawn in the front of your house, you're not going to go ask your neighbor that has a dirt lawn and doesn't take care of their lawn, hey, what do you think I should do to take care of my lawn? You're going to go ask somebody that maybe has that expertise, or puts the effort into, or has the belief, oh, this is how we should do lawn care. So the same idea with, if you have specific beliefs, if you are Catholic and you want advice in a particular area of life, and and it's related to your faith in some way, which we could probably relate everything to our faith as Catholics, you're going to want to ask someone that has that same belief system, because if they don't, they're going to lead you or give you advice that kind of leads you away from those values. So if you want to stay rooted in your faith, you're going to ask a Catholic what their ideas are, or their thoughts, or what their reflections are on that similar particular topic.
Yeah, I think you're right. And we've both, I think you and I have talked enough, Caroline, that we both have had experiences in our own lives where we had to really seek out the right people,
Mm-hmm.
because it's very easy to seek out someone who's going to kind of like appease you, or even to, or maybe they're giving you advice that's contrary with what you know is right, but they'll say, why should you have to put up with that, or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now let's talk about something like relationship issues, right? Because we do live in this mentality, in this world right now, where the divorce rate is, about 50%. Even within the Catholic Church, people who are married in the Catholic Church, it can be somewhere between like 45, 50%. I don't know exactly where it is right at this exact moment in time, but it's somewhere around there.
It's still too
And
high.
it's high, right? And so when we ask people who have that worldly mentality of, you know what, things aren't going well, maybe life will be better if you just move on. Now, there's going to be instances where, I mean, people who are watching this video who are already divorced and they had a terrible relationship with an ex. I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about people where you actually, there is a chance, a fighting chance for a marriage,
Mm-hmm.
because all marriages go through things, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
And when you decide that you want to go through counseling or talk to a priest or something, then it is going to help you to get on that track to put your marriage first, right? Or even, maybe it isn't marriage, maybe it's a relationship with a child, or maybe it's a relationship with your parent. And some people might say, you know what, just move on with your life, block them out of your life, or whatever it is. You hear that a lot these days too, don't we? That
Yes.
people who just want to just say, you know what, we don't agree, like politically or whatever it is, like I'm done with these people. I don't want anything to do with them anymore.
Yeah.
But, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, now every situation is different. Of course, we know that. We understand that there are some really horrific family situations. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where sometimes we need to put sort of our agendas aside and say, you know what, I need to make peace with certain people, right? I
Mm-hmm.
still need to be friendly to them. I still need to be a good person to somebody, right? I'm not talking about abuse. As I said, I got to keep saying that. We're not talking about
Right.
abusive situations, but we're talking about putting agendas aside so that we can really follow the Lord in our lives. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I think you probably agree.
Yes. No, absolutely. I mean, the Catholic value, it's so, I'm not gonna say the Catholic value is contrary to the world. I'm gonna say the world is contrary to the Catholic
Mm,
values, because, God came first. So we're going to start there. And the world, the secular world, is very counterintuitive. If you think about it, everything in our faith points towards life, points towards growth. And everything that counters that, it points towards destruction. Well, we don't like this how it is. We're going to change it, but it involves destruction. And we don't think we should go along with XYZ. So we're going to, separate ourselves from that, cut that out of our lives. So it's destruction, it's isolation, it's, it's making someone more alone. It's not helping. You be careful when you hear people talk about self-care. Self-care is very important, and I promote self-care and I write about self-care all the time, but it's not self-care to, separate yourself completely from a relationship. I mean, again, unless that relationship is abusive, that's a different story. But we're talking about, oh, that person hurt my feelings. I can't reconcile that. I'm just going to not deal with it. Well, that's not the Catholic way. The Catholic way would be, how do we find reconciliation? Because if you don't, you're carrying that with you. You can't just close everything off or shove it in a box and tuck it under a bed. You have to find a way to reconcile. We need to build up those relationships. And if the other person, and Jesus says this, the other person is unwilling, then you wipe the dust from your feet and you move on. So you make your part, you make your effort, and whatever else is after that is out of your control. But you can't just, the world wants us to shut everything out, change things, do for you, everything's I things and me things and all of that stuff. It's very selfish, but we are meant to be a community to build each other up. And so we need to promote that.
I love that you brought up community, because really we are a worldwide universal church, but it goes right down to those microcosms, all the way down to literally that relationship that you have in your own home as a family, whether it's husband and wife, or whether you live by yourself, whatever it is, that's, your family there, that you're the domestic church, and then to your church community, your outward community where you live, your state, your country, the entire world. I mean, so we're part of something much bigger. And peace begins with me, right? It begins with you. It begins with you who are watching this video. And sometimes if people don't want to be peaceful with you, then yes, you do have to kind of just stand your ground and, you tried your best, right? We can't do more than that. We just can't do more than that. So if you're watching this video and you've gone through some kind of relationship problem, maybe you're separated from a spouse and you want to make peace, but your spouse is like, listen, I'm done. Well, you've done all that you could, other than just pray and just leave it to the Lord at this point.
Always keep praying.
That's right. You got to keep praying. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, the topic of this podcast again is that when we seek advice, that just be very, very careful about where you get that advice from. I mean, I know that in my own life, I have faced that many, many times, even growing up, because not everybody in my, family of origin was on the same page with me and what I believe in faith. And so, it's hard when you have to kind of say, you know what? I respectfully disagree. This is what I need to do. And it's up to them whether they want to continue to be peaceful with you, right? You can't force anything. I've really learned that a lot in my life, over and over and over again. And I just want to say to all of you who are watching to not give up, keep praying. But if you don't have that in your family of origin, you can find it in the church. That's the good news, okay?
Yes.
And our foundation, as I've said over and over again as well, is that we make that free pastoral outreach through the charisms of the Mercedarian religious order. When you go to our website and you go to the priestly consultation, you can talk to a priest for free. You can make an appointment online, or you can call, whatever works for you. But the website, as I always say, is nonnatus.org. So get in touch with us. Email is the easiest way. There's a contact form there. Fill it out and we'll make that appointment. But maybe there's even a pastor or priest or someone within your own parish community that you trust, that you can talk to about an issue that you're having. Maybe it's even a permanent deacon. Sometimes priests are busy, but I recommend to all of you, find the right advice, right, from someone that you know. And if you don't know a good Catholic person who really knows their faith, again, I said, reach out to us. Maybe Caroline, you have the first responder coaching. I mean, that doesn't specifically have to do with the pastoral consult, but Caroline's a good person to connect with too, for different things related to first responders, especially. So I don't know if you wanted to talk about that.
Well, the whole reason that we have first responder coaching is, we found that first responders are not reaching out to counselors and therapists and peer support because they feel they're misunderstood. And our founder went through that when her husband was going through a crisis, which was the moments that she started reaching out to coaching. She got introduced to coaching and then she started going that way. But when she herself was seeing a therapist, this therapist did not understand the situations that she was talking about with her husband and the late nights and, every night that he went out on call, his life was in danger and all the things that she was going through. And it's not a normal thing to go through on a daily basis. Every time you go to work shouldn't be that high stress. It's not normal for that to be a high stress situation. Every call that you get, we get a task at work, and it's just a task that you have to do at work. Maybe you have to write an email, or maybe you have to do whatever. But for first responders and military, those can be drastic situations that they go into on a regular basis. So, so the understanding that in itself, understanding the shifts, understanding the culture, being able to go to a group that already understands that life makes it so much easier to open up, because they get you. And it's the same with anyone who is going to seek advice, going to someone who shares your values, shares your faith. You are going to get advice or hear counsel that aligns with your beliefs. And that's so important, because when you start to get advice that doesn't align with your beliefs, even if you're like, well, they know better, I guess I'm going to try that, you have this, it's a conflict inside of you, and you have that unrest. So you really, it's really important to stick with Catholic advice when you're going through life troubles. And so reaching out to spiritual counseling through St. Raymond Nonnatus is a great way to do that, or your own parish priest. It just takes a phone call, or if you don't want to talk on the phone, an email to say, hey, I'm looking for spiritual advice on XYZ. Who can I talk to? You set an appointment. You just get over that one hump of setting that appointment or having that phone call. Once you're there, once you're talking with that person, you're going to feel so much better. You're going to feel heard, and you're going to get the counsel that you really need.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's just like anything else, right? When it's not so much, when you look at the whole process, the hardest thing is just getting there, right? That's like anything else. I mean, even when it's like when you have to go to Sunday mass, a lot of times the hardest thing is just getting yourself dressed, getting in the car, and walking through. Once you walk through that door, you're there. Okay.
Getting
So,
3 kids and your husband up.
right. Exactly. Now, I do want to address one more thing on this podcast that I think is important. People who do seek therapy, therapy is extremely important, and not all, I should say, most insurances won't cover probably Christian or Catholic counseling. So you got to do what you can afford, right? If you can't
Absolutely.
afford to get a Christian or Catholic counsel, I would say at least try to find a person, an individual therapist that you can trust and that you're pretty sure has your values. There
Mm-hmm.
are some counselors that don't bill themselves as Catholic or Christian that are.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can find those people. You just have to kind of do a little more searching. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the best way to do that is maybe not an internet search, but talk to friends,
Mm-hmm.
right? They might know, maybe somebody at church, maybe somebody that you know from a prayer group or somewhere else. Maybe they know of a counselor that actually takes your health insurance. So that could be one. Now, if you do have the money to do it out of pocket, we actually have some counselors on our website that we can recommend. We have a page there called Outside Resources. What we mean by outside is that it's not something that we house, it's not something that we host, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have 3 to 4 different links at the bottom of that page, Outside Resources, of counselors. Now, some of them are located like close to where we are in Pennsylvania. We're near the Philadelphia area. And some of them, they're not close by. But a lot of these counselors now do online counseling. So it kind of doesn't matter. You can speak to somebody in Texas. I know one of ours is in Texas. So check it out. I recommend that you just do your homework. If you need help with that homework, you can always get in touch with us on the contact form. And maybe there's a way that that I can check out and see if there's somewhere in your community that we can find somebody for you. But remember, that's so important when it comes to getting the right advice. I mean, I can tell you all this. I have been through counseling before in my life at different times of my life. And I've had good counselors and I've had not so good counselors. And the ones that weren't good, what I did was once I had 1, 2, or even maybe 3 sessions with them, and I could tell that this person is not on the same page with me, like with what I
It
believe. And they're
it
kind of
it
like,
does take it does take, I have to say, for a life
yeah,
coach or counselor therapist, you have to give them 3 or 4 sessions. You have to. If sometimes there might be some major red flags in the beginning, but you have to give them a couple of sessions to get to know you, for you to be clear about your thoughts and beliefs and values, for you to get to know how they work as that job, whether it's a counselor, coach, therapist, whoever. And you have to give it that chance. It does take a couple sessions for it to get rolling. And then if at that point it doesn't feel like a good fit, vocalize that.
yeah. Oh, I agree with you. And I've seen it happen over and over again in my own life and even in people close to me. You have to do your homework. There's got to be a good fit. Really, there's got to
Yes.
be a good fit. Now, I don't mean someone that's just going to tell you what you want to hear, right? I
Right.
mean that someone that aligns with your belief system and who you get along with. I mean, that's just a human thing.
Yes.
You can have somebody who maybe they're very rooted in their faith and everything looks good on paper, right? But when you meet them, you're just kind of like, you know what? I just didn't like that person that much. There was something about their personality or something that maybe they just rubbed you the wrong way. I mean, it might sound funny to say that, but does that make sense? I
Yep.
just
No.
think you have to sort of feel it out. They might look good on paper, but there's got to be a good rapport between the two of you, right?
Hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
it's really important. And another thing too, keep in mind that with your friends, we talked a lot about family, okay? But when it comes to your friends too, if your friends are not people of faith and you're having a relationship problem and you're going to someone that it's really a secular worldview, you're going
Hmm.
to get a secular answer to that problem too.
Hmm.
And so just please keep that in mind, right? So as much as you might love this person, this is my best friend from high school or whoever it is. I don't know
Hmm.
who that person is in your own life, right? It could be your next door neighbor, your person at church, whoever it is. But just remember that that person, is not God, right? And just because you have a great relationship with them and you trust them, it doesn't mean that the advice you're going to get is going to be the right advice for you. So
Yes.
that's really like the bottom line message of this podcast is
I
that,
have an example of that,
yeah,
actually.
please give us, Caroline. Love to hear.
So we were last year we had a lot of family weddings, and my daughter, she's a teenager. She is a social butterfly within her own little circle. She does not like big parties with people she doesn't know, especially families she doesn't remember or doesn't see very often, because then they come up to her like they've known her forever, because they have. And so she didn't want to go to this particular wedding when she first found out about it. And she was griping about that. And a friend of ours was there during the conversation and sided with her. And this is
Mm,
someone that I have been able to get advice from before, and I've commiserated with this person. We're friends, she's a lovely, lovely person, but she is of a different mindset in a
mm,
lot of ways. And she's like, let her do what she wants. She's very like free going and all that sense. And I'm
mhm.
like, no, I come from a big Italian family. When you're invited to something, you go, and the whole
Right.
family goes, and there's no question
Oh,
about
I
that.
get
That's a
that.
family obligation. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
I'm old country when it comes to that. And she was like, oh, I don't think anyone should be forced to do something they want to do. And I'm like, no, this is a responsibility. You have to show up. So we had difference of opinions on that. Um, and so I wasn't going to listen to that advice. And it was like, well, I still love her. She's still a lovely person. And, we still jive on a lot of things together. But on this particular thing, it's like, nope, this, I know my values. I know how I'm raising and she knows this, I know how I'm raising my children. And, my daughter went to the wedding and she had a great time and we danced a
Good.
bunch.
See?
So she was fine, but I knew that. And so it's a different thing. So you have to kind of take that into account when you're getting alternative advice from someone and you're like, yeah, but that's not what I want to do, or that doesn't align with my values. The other important thing to do is forgive that person. Like,
Mm.
I didn't hold it
Yes.
against her. I didn't hold it against her because I know that's her view and that's how she sees
That
it.
makes complete sense. You forgave,
So
and forgiving is so important.
it really is.
Yeah, that's a good story. And also it's a good story with parenting too. Now we could do maybe our next series will be on parenting. I think that might be a good one. Okay. But I think with parenting too, that parents, friends of a parent need to understand that parents really have first, um, how could I say? I'm trying to word this correctly here. Well, the parents have first responsibility with their kids, not aunts
Yes.
and uncles, not cousins, not
Right.
grandparents, nobody. Okay.
Right.
The parent has the first responsibility of that child and teaching your child, right?
Yep.
Parents don't want to teach their kids anymore. They just want to leave it to the school districts or, other people or like just,
Oh, we could do a whole, that's
oh,
another series.
oh yeah. Let's do that as our next 12 parts. So keep an eye, everybody. Maybe we'll do a 12
Right?
part
We'll
series on
definitely do something
Catholic
like that.
parenting. Yes, that's a great one. But anyway, I think we're going to wrap this one up. But so remember, the bottom line of the message for this podcast tonight is that if you're going to need advice for something to do with anything, any kind of crisis, that it has to be from your worldview, which is, if you're watching this podcast, your worldview is Catholic or Christian, right? So stick in that category, right? Stick in that realm. If you want to keep your faith, then like they say, if you want to learn about baseball, you don't ask a basketball player or something like that. You would ask a baseball player. Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
Right? Yeah.
I think it's simple as that. Anyway,
So,
Caroline, any final words before we end?
oh, I just want to circle back to community. You want to grow in your faith, then you want to build your faith community. And if that means that, all your friends and your family are not as rooted in their faith, that's okay. You don't have to cut them out of your life. You just have to realize that and build practices and make connections with the Catholic community. And that, it doesn't mean you have to see them every day. It just means you have to have that connection. Even join Facebook groups or anything like that. Continue to build those connections, build that community for yourself, because that's going to help you grow in your own faith.
Excellent advice. Thank you so much. So again, just to reiterate, when we meet here on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page too at the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation, we are the last Thursday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can watch the videos anytime. And be sure to check out the other videos in this series on 12 ways to heal after a crisis. Thank you all so much. God bless.